Imagine waking up to find your city paralyzed, not by a storm, but by something invisible. The world outside looks the same, but something fundamental has changed. The hum of daily life is replaced by an eerie silence, broken only by the anxious murmurs of neighbors and the distant wail of sirens. Overnight, the city's pulse has faded, leaving everyone to wonder what could possibly have happened. On May 7, 2024, Ethelberg's digital infrastructure, the nervous system of the city, was severed. Every connection, every system that kept the city running, suddenly went dark. The city's lifeblood, data, stopped flowing, and confusion spread like wildfire. Hackers had locked the city out of its own systems. With a few keystrokes, they had seized control, leaving the city's leaders powerless and its citizens in the dark. This was no mere inconvenience, it was a digital siege. The city's defenses, once thought impenetrable, had been breached in a matter of minutes. Reports of chaos trickled in through social media and radio. With the internet crippled, people clung to any scrap of information, desperate for answers. City employees found their computers displaying a chilling ransom note: pay 51 Bitcoin or lose everything. The message was clear, the threat unmistakable. Every file, database, and critical system was encrypted. Decades of records, plans, and essential data were suddenly out of reach, locked behind a digital wall. The digital keys to the city were gone, and only the criminals could unlock them. The city's fate now rested in the hands of faceless strangers. Ethelberg prided itself on its technology and security, yet a faceless enemy brought it to its knees. The city's experts scrambled to understand the scope of the attack, but every attempt to regain control was met with failure. The attack exposed a terrifying vulnerability in every connected city. If it could happen here, it could happen anywhere. The illusion of safety was shattered. The hacker didn't need bombs, just a keyboard and a weakness. In a world built on code, a single flaw was all it took to bring a city to a standstill. Every municipal department was affected. From the mayor's office to the smallest public library, nothing was spared. The city was flying blind. Officials couldn't coordinate a response. Meetings devolved into confusion as digital tools failed and critical decisions were delayed. Emergency services struggled to communicate, public transportation schedules vanished, and the city's most vulnerable residents were left without support. Payment systems for utilities and taxes went offline, residents couldn't pay bills, and businesses faced mounting losses as transactions ground to a halt. The government was forced back to pen and paper, unprepared for such a throwback. Decades of progress were erased in an instant, and the city's leaders struggled to adapt. The digital siege had begun, and no one knew how or when it would end. Anxiety grew with every passing hour, as the city waited for a sign of hope. The city's confidence in its own security was shattered. The sense of invincibility was gone, replaced by fear and doubt. Residents faced uncertainty, their routines upended overnight. Families gathered around powerless devices, wondering when life would return to normal. The invisible threat had become a daily reality. Every beep, every flicker of a screen, was a reminder of how vulnerable the city had become. Ethelberg was under siege and the world was watching. News of the attack spread across the globe, as other cities wondered if they might be next. The countdown to disaster had started. The city's future now hung in the balance as the world waited to see if Ethelberg could fight back, or if it would become a cautionary tale for the digital age. The attackers called themselves Dark Overlord, a name whispered in cybersecurity circles with a mix of fear and fascination. They were infamous for targeting public institutions, schools, hospitals, and city governments, leaving a trail of digital devastation in their wake. Their method was chillingly effective: find a weakness, infiltrate the system, steal sensitive data, encrypt everything, and then demand a hefty ransom. But this time, their ambitions grew. They set their sights on an entire city, aiming to bring it to its knees. Their goal was more than just money. It was to instill fear, disrupt daily life, and create chaos on a scale never seen before. The hackers communicated with chilling clarity, sending taunting messages and claiming to have stolen terabytes of the city's most sensitive data. The threat was simple but terrifying: pay up, or they'd leak everything. Personal information, confidential city records, even police reports. The city faced an impossible choice: give in to the criminals' demands, or risk a total collapse of public trust and essential services. Law enforcement agencies strongly warned against paying, arguing it would only embolden future attacks. But rebuilding from scratch would take months and cost millions. As days dragged on, Dark Overlord began leaking snippets of stolen data, internal emails, police informant lists, fueling panic, distrust, and confusion throughout the city. The hackers weren't just technical adversaries, they were masters of psychological warfare, manipulating emotions and sowing division. Public opinion quickly turned against city leaders, with mounting pressure from residents and the media to simply pay the ransom and end the nightmare. The real battle was for the hearts and minds of Ethelberg's terrified residents, who watched helplessly as their city unraveled. The city's leadership was trapped, every move scrutinized by a nervous public and a relentless media. The siege was as much about control and psychological dominance as it was about causing chaos and destruction. The city's fate hung in the balance as everyone waited to see what would happen next. Pinpointing Dark Overlord's members was nearly impossible. These weren't traditional criminals. They were a decentralized network of hackers scattered across the globe. They hid behind layers of encryption and routed traffic through multiple countries. Dark Overlord operated more like a franchise than a single group, with different cells sharing tools and profits. Their skills ranged from finding security flaws to negotiating ransoms. Their motivation was simple: profit. They targeted vulnerable public institutions, cities, schools, hospitals, knowing they'd pay to restore services. Law enforcement had made some arrests, but the core group remained elusive. For every hacker caught, more stepped in, lured by untraceable cryptocurrency payouts. The fight was a relentless game of cat and mouse. The Ethelberg attack was a terrifying escalation. The threat was far from neutralized. How did it happen? The answer was painfully simple. The hackers got in through a phishing email, a fake invoice sent to a city employee. One click on a malicious link and malware quietly opened a backdoor into the city's network. The attackers moved slowly, mapping the system, escalating privileges and stealing data. They worked at night, blending in with normal traffic to avoid detection. Once ready, they unleashed ransomware across thousands of computers, encrypting everything in minutes. They deleted backups, leaving the city with no easy way out. The ransom note appeared everywhere. A single human error had triggered a citywide catastrophe. The attack was a textbook case of patient, methodical hacking. The city's digital heart stopped beating. The impact on daily life was immediate and profound. Traffic lights defaulted to flashing yellow, causing gridlock. Public transportation was thrown into chaos. Payment systems failed, commuters stranded. City websites and online services vanished. No bill payments, no permits, no library access. Emergency dispatchers relied on radios and paper maps, slowing response times. Hospitals lost access to electronic health records, increasing the risk of medical errors. Residents worried about stolen personal data, trust in government eroding. The city's routines were shattered, replaced by anxiety and uncertainty. The digital shutdown exposed just how fragile modern life had become. The psychological toll was immense. The invisible threat was now painfully real. The attack's ripple effects hit the economy hard. Real estate deals stalled, no access to land records, no home sales. Small businesses couldn't get permits or inspections, delaying openings and projects. The court system ground to a halt, legal cases piling up. Inequality deepened. Hourly workers were furloughed, the less tech-savvy left in the dark. Garbage collection and water treatment faltered as digital systems failed. Concerns grew over the city's water supply and sanitation. The attack breached the barrier between digital and physical worlds. A line of code had real-world consequences for health and safety. The city's very fabric was tested. Faced with crisis, Ethelberg made a bold choice. They refused to pay the ransom, even as pressure mounted from all sides. The city's leaders knew that giving in would only encourage more attacks, but the risks were enormous. With critical systems down and the public demanding answers, the stakes had never been higher. A task force of IT staff, federal agents, and cybersecurity experts was assembled almost overnight. They worked around the clock, pooling their expertise and resources, determined to outsmart the attackers and restore the city's digital lifelines. Every server and computer was taken offline, treated as a crime scene. The city's digital infrastructure, once the backbone of daily life, was now frozen in time, awaiting investigation. Forensics teams searched for clues and ways to recover data without paying. They combed through lines of code, looking for traces of the attackers and any hope of restoring what was lost. The city rebuilt its network from scratch, using new hardware and isolated systems. Every step was painstaking, with security as the top priority to prevent another breach. Data recovery relied on old, offline backups, weeks or even months out of date. The city had to accept that some of its most recent records and files were simply gone. Restoring from tape was slow and incomplete. Some data was lost forever. The process was grueling, with setbacks and frustrations at every turn. Essential services, emergency dispatch, hospitals, water were prioritized for restoration. The city's most vulnerable residents depended on these systems, and every hour counted. It took weeks to get core systems partially running and months for full recovery. The city's staff worked long nights, driven by a sense of duty and determination. The costs soared into the tens of millions, far more than the ransom. Budgets were stretched, and hard choices had to be made about what could be restored and what was lost for good. The city won the battle, but at a tremendous price. Relief was mixed with exhaustion, and the sense of victory was tempered by the knowledge of what it had cost. The scars of the attack would linger. The city's sense of security was shaken, and the lessons learned would shape its future. Ethelberg's resilience was tested like never before. The community came together, determined to rebuild and protect what mattered most. The digital war had left its mark, a reminder that in the modern world, the fight for security is never truly over. The Ethelberg attack was a wake-up call for cities everywhere. It proved cybersecurity is a matter of public safety, not just IT. The disaster began with a single phishing email, highlighting the need for constant employee training. Robust offline backups are essential. Online backups can be destroyed. A well-rehearsed incident response plan is critical for crisis management. The cost of prevention is a fraction of recovery. Cybersecurity must be a core public service, not an afterthought. Investment in modern tools, skilled staff, and a culture of security is non-negotiable. The price of complacency is simply too high. The lesson: prepare, invest, and never underestimate the threat. Ethelberg's story is a warning for our hyper-connected world. The battlefields of today are digital: server rooms, inboxes, critical infrastructure. The enemies are faceless, motivated by greed or ideology. Every city, hospital, and business is a potential target. Our digital convenience comes with new vulnerabilities. Cybersecurity is everyone's responsibility. Governments, organizations, individuals. Strong passwords, two-factor authentication, and skepticism are essential. Digital literacy is as vital as reading and writing. The threat is evolving. Staying informed is our best defense. The scars remain, but so does the resolve to fight back.